Good evening, everybody. And we are so happy to be here on this platform today. So today is the World Day for Prevention of Child Abuse, and we're all coming together as organizations, as individuals, working towards protecting children from various kinds of abuse. And we're here to discuss how collectively we can protect children offline and online. Great efforts by Team Arpan, with a lot of webinars happening the entire Child Safety Week. And we are doing our little bit of getting in people to talk about their expertise and their experiences in the field of cyberspace and children and child online protection. So today's discussion is about online sexual abuse, reporting mechanisms, and safety measures. And I'm so happy to have some of the experts in this space and dear friends that we've been working with share their valuable insights with us today. I take great in introducing them to you, and let me begin with Saloni Savnani, who is a practicing clinical psychologist, very passionate about working with children. For the last 8 years, she's been in the field of development with child-centric organizations as a therapist, as a mentor for emotional well-being. She's also a psychotherapist and has handled a lot of cases of adult and child abuse extensively. At Arpan, she is the Associate Director, Healing Services, and provides strategic thinking and guidance to the healing team and therapeutic work for Arpan. Welcome, Saloni. Happy to have you on board and looking forward to hearing you in this session today. We then have Mr. Nitish Chandan. He's
Thank you, Sonali.
Computer science engineer and a cyber lawyer, a deadly combination to have. He specializes in technology law, investigations, research, and writing. He has led assisted technology facilitated investigations into cyber crimes with the law enforcement in India. He has also designed and led capacity building programs for law enforcement in specific areas like cyber crimes against women and children, and open source intelligence gathering, analytics for investigation, big terms, and amazing work that he's been doing. Currently, he leads the technology, law, and policy research group for Cyber Peace Foundation. He's a great orator. Cyber Peace Foundation is an award-winning organization, a think tank of cybersecurity and policy experts with the vision of pioneering cyber peace initiatives to collectively build resilience against cyber crimes and global threats. Welcome, Nitish. Looking forward to hearing you in this discussion.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Anali.
And we have a dear friend, Mohammad Mustafa, who is the founder and chief of two non-profit organizations in the UAE and India. 25 years of stellar IT professional and humanitarian career in the UAE, internationally recognized social entrepreneur, we're working towards building capacities in Asia and Africa on child online protection. He has interestingly visited over 30 countries to understand organizational best practices on child online protection like Interpol, Europol, Google, etc. As a result, he's now the member of Interpol and working on crimes against children and various international advisory boards. Also, he brings in a lot of value. He also has a US patented inventor for building internet and authentic information and has been awarded by the UAE for Safer Internet Day and by the Indian Minister of Telecommunications, Mr. Kapil Sibal, for his work in India. And I am Sonali Patankar. I'm the founder of Responsible Netism, a non-profit committed towards education of child online protection and safety and cyber wellness. We work on education and also provide referrals for psychological and legal, provide guidelines to people and children who face online distress. I hold 25 years of experience in the field of development and mental health. I call myself a child online protectionist, and I'm delighted to be the moderator of this session. iSafe, the organization or the collective that is launching today's, that is hosting today's webinar, is Internet Safety Alliance for Empowerment, which is a collective of organizations working towards child online protection and protection of all the people in cyberspace. And we're together here discussing critical issues of child online sexual abuse and safety measures. So let us directly jump into the discussion and Here, all our experts share very, very valuable insights with us. May I begin my first question with Saloni? If you can help us understand what is online child sexual abuse, and can you help us understand how critical this entire issue of online grooming is, and do really children get sexually abused online? Over to you, Saloni.
Thanks, Sonali. I think I'm having a little unstable internet, so I missed. You asked me was what exactly is online child sexual abuse. Am I audible
Yes.
right now?
Yes, but your voice is buffering. So is it okay if you can
Okay.
keep your
So
video on? Probably will hear you better.
I'll I'll do that. I'll switch off my video so it'll make it better. Okay. Am I more audible now?
Yes,
Is the voice
yes,
better?
yes.
Okay, great. All right. So online child sexual abuse is it's actually a very vast thing. If you ask me, Sonali, it's just not about showing material online, or showing material to children which is inappropriate. Or it would also include a whole gamut of other things, like if you're sexting someone, or if you're sending sex messages and bullying someone sexually online. It would also include, of course it would include showing the appropriate content and things like that. When people encourage the children to say undress, or you know get into inappropriate behaviors, send photographs, send material which is not appropriate, to so to say. It would also include when children are used for filming in an inappropriate manner, filming abuse, filming, or even play between children, which is, inappropriate is the word I would like to use, where that's something where one would not which would normally be classified as abuse. Sometimes you would also find people would blackmail children over the internet. That would be a part of child sexual abuse, because you would say that, okay, I've filmed you, or I have a nude photograph of yours, or I've morphed a photograph of yours, and I'm going to make that viral if you don't do XYZ PQR. Now, it's a whole range of activities which happen online, which get included in this, what we would call child sexual abuse. In
Mhm.
the entire gamut includes a whole lot of activities which come in it. uh, what I Could you just repeat the second part of the question which you asked, because I lost the connect at that point of time.
Yeah, I wanted you to throw some light on child online grooming as well, because
The
that is
second part
also,
of the question which you'd asked.
I think your voice is cracking, is what
Correct. So
the
that's a very,
audience.
very large part. Okay, so give me a minute. I think maybe you could go to the next person. I'll just
Sure.
reconnect from another system. Maybe
Yeah,
my
makes sense.
connection
Yeah.
would be better. Yeah, just
Sure,
give me
sure,
two
sure.
minutes. Yeah.
Over to you, Nitish. And I know you've been doing extensive work on research, especially related to CSAM. And if you can help our people understand what really CSAM is, and how grave is is the issue, and what is child online grooming, and if you can throw some interesting findings of the study that you recently did. To you.
Thanks. I've been working in this space, particularly on cyber crimes against children, for about 4 years now. And having looked at the space, the way it has evolved in these last 4 years, just to say, at the very outset, it's also terrifying at some levels. But we see a lot of things evolving and shaping. Um, Okay, I'll just start with where we were. Say in 2016, 2017, that time, most of the content that we would see, child sexual abuse material, now many people misread this or miscommunicate this with, say, child pornography, calling this child
Yes.
pornography, which is an absolute, which at least, if one thing that every participant can take away from this webinar is, there is nothing called child pornography. Pornography means that's something for which there was consent. Children cannot give consent to being recorded or being abused. So it's always called child sexual abuse material. So these are images, these are videos, or these are other graphical content which depicts children in any sexually exploitative position. Um, back in the day, I mean, back when I say back in the day, it's I mean, it's 4 years back now. Content used to be where children were, say, forced into abusive situations, and this happens. It's the socio-demographic divide of this country. That the rural part, say, is I may name states, say states like Bihar, West Bengal, Assam. The rural parts in these states, people would go for, say, there's all this idea of sex tourism where people would physically go and abuse children, and where families would also offer their children to be abused, and this setting was recorded, and then it was made popular, it was distributed, sold, blah blah blah. Now, all of that, given the pandemic and to now, what we see is that this has shifted to children creating content on their own. Now, why I built this entire narrative is to also bring home Sonalji's point about grooming. Now, what has happened today is that in this evolution of the online spaces, social media, gaming, and children being on these platforms without any checks, without any controls, parents being absolutely unaware. Just yesterday, ECPAT came out with a report that says that the maximum amount of, if not the maximum, but a large amount of CSAM, the child sexual abuse material out there, is actually created by children themselves. So self-created content is on the rise. Now, I can tell you from experience, because I witnessed this content firsthand for the research that we did over June and July this year. We found almost all adult pornography groups on WhatsApp disseminate child sexual abuse material. There's a lot of demand from people, real people from India. Let me tell you also, statistically, India ranks the at the top in terms of dissemination of CSAM. So the maximum reports of CSAM all over the world were from India. Needless to say, this might also be true for creation. If not for creation, it's definitely true for consumption of content. So we've seen some disturbing trends there. Outside of that, there's a lot to be done. I'm not going to go into that. But what is most disturbing is that this is shifting. The trend is shifting from children creating their own content, and this is as a result of grooming, where children on social media are groomed to say, hey, I'll give you this, playing PUBG, I'll give you this I don't know, whatever, this benefit in the game, I'll give you these pieces of clothing, or I'll give you this cash or whatever, and then grooming them to do something. um, so that starts a cycle of grooming, can happen on social media, can happen on games, and largely remains untracked.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, that's the trend.
Absolutely. I so agree with you, because similarly, we've seen trends in Maharashtra with a survey that we did in January, where we've had so many cases of children very, very casually sharing nudes with strangers without understanding consequences, without even understanding what that could lead to. I think that is a huge, huge cause of concern globally, in fact. And all of us working in the space are really struggling to understand how do we therefore deal with this. Coming to you, Mustafa, you've had so much of experience globally in terms of handling CSAM material. Just to clarify, CSAM is child sexual abusive material, which was earlier called child pornography, which is no longer, like Nitish very correctly mentioned, is called CSAM. A lot of times children are generating this content, which is why it is called child sexual abusive material generated by children. So, Mustafa, if you can bring in some best practices that other countries have been using to prevent, to combat this kind of a menace. If you can throw some light on that, please.
Well, thank you, Sonali. So the thing is, it's been there for a long time, and I would say the UNICEF has recently, ITU has recently launched the child safety manual, the guidelines. I was part of the launching, and I was just tell them it have to redo the entire document, because the pandemic situation today has changed the entire, the race of child pornography or child abuse materials, as well as the grooming. All child issues happening online has been, I would say, 5 times or even 10 times increased. So what happened from the day one? International community such as European Union, as well as the UN organizations, international police organization, from the from the day one, they have been working to build a harmony of law, number one, because today we are all living in two things matters. One is technology, and another one is a policy and law. So what happened around the world is the law makes a total not in harmony. So harmonization of the law is the key matter, where, to be frank, the Asian region and the African region is least bothered about harmonizing the law, and they are not taken a step to harmonize the law. I'll tell you a scenario. Sorry for that if I mention a country, but I'm just taking this country as a namesake to understand. A Nepali citizen traveled to US, and sitting in US, they abused a Mexican girl and photographed this act and traveled back to Brazil. Sitting in Brazil, they used a Singapore server and a VPN of Sri Lanka, and posted all these contents in a Netherlands server. And an Indian citizen sitting in UAE, using Qatar VPN, download all these contents, and they got caught. Tell me, which jurisdiction applied? So this is one of the major issue the international law enforcement agency is facing to get, solve this problem. So what happened is, from the day one, they are building a law enforcement and the legal framework, harmonizing the legal framework. What is a child? What is the age? What is a child abuse materials? Why should anybody call child abuse materials? It's still Indian, when the FIR reporting, the police is not using such a word. They are talking about child pornography. When they talk about child pornography, by definition, it is a problem. So we need lots of capacity building. With the help of international agency, they have gone very far. They've done a wonderful job. We have to open up our mind, and our government have to adopt such a beautiful model which they have built into the country. So international best practices, I would say, International Center for Missing and Exploited Children, National Center for Missing and Exploited Children from USA, E-Safety Commission from Oceania, Europol from EC, they have EC2 plan, and also they have European and American financial coalitions, in hope, and IWF reporting tools. These are the best practices around the world. We have to build that particular ecosystem in order to build the following processes. What we need to do, we need to block and removing the website. So when it comes to the child abuse materials, though it is illegal in 99% countries, it is an illegal act. Maybe the law will give certain clauses and a provision to escape from certain countries. So these criminals travel to those countries and do this particular act. So otherwise, 99% we can remove the websites from the, I would say, the surface web. When it comes to the dark net, that's a different story. We need to address it differently. And infiltration into the online world and victim identification, this is one of the major issue the global community is facing. Victim identification, yes, Interpol or the global community have identified a child abuse materials. Okay, who is this child? Is this child is from India? If it is India, from which state? Which, if it is from which state, which, I mean, they know the state, which district? Is this a child still abused? Because I'm also a victim identification community around the world. So what happened is, I happened to see a child with 4 year, and the child next year again their photograph, 5 year, 6 year, 7 year, and even she is becoming the adolescent age, her photographs and videographs still shared online. So which means we no policing system around the world able to go and rescue the child. So they have a very good practices. We as an NGO and the capacity builders of the country have to adopt, bring those practices, lobby the government, push the government to make this happen in our country. That's
Yeah,
what I recommend to do.
I so agree, and I think everybody will also realize how widespread the issue is. It is a global concern. It is not jurisdiction specific, which is why it is extremely difficult to remove content, to address the issue, to identify criminals, to identify predators, and to identify victims. Coming to you, Nitish, I really want you to talk to us about the law. There is POXO, but are we really equipped to handle the number of cases? Are we really, do we have systems strengthened to handle the number of cases that probably are absolutely underreported? So while all studies talk about how reporting is, is just a minuscule, it's just the tip of the iceberg. So are we really ready? And what does the law have to say about it?
Yes, thanks. Thank you so much. I think I'll just draw from what Mustafa ji has just said, and it's very important. Number one, where the law, not just in India but world over, lacks, is we worked with victims. You worked with victims. Mustafa ji's worked. Saloni ji's worked with victims. The first thing, the only logical thing that victims want is their content should be removed. They do not want re-victimization. They, okay, let's also think about how. And I was reading about ECPAT, and I think if there are parents listening to this, please try to understand, it is not wrong to sext. Maybe it is wrong. Okay, let's accept for a moment if it is wrong. Have you talked to your child about it? If you have not talked to your child about it, do not establish that it is wrong. Why do they feel it is right? Now, the reason sexting is happening and this content is being created, and now what happens is at some point there is some relationship that goes wrong and a picture or a video goes viral. It's commonplace today. But the victim, the child, whoever knows who's done this. They know the culprit, they know the offender. The law is in place to put them behind the bars. POXO is there, everything is there. I mean, the law substantially to put someone behind bars is there.
Yeah.
But is the procedural law there just to help the victim take down this content? No. Just yesterday, we worked on a content takedown case, and we've with the help of like different service providers, we've taken down one particular video from 90 websites, and it takes the life out of you to
Absolutely.
find out these places and then go ahead try to remove these. And in this is all of this is happening in the absence of a law to effect that. These companies are not liable because they don't control this content. So our again, through, I'm going back to our research I've also shared in the chat. What we're trying to posit is that companies, communication services, social media have to become responsible and liable to some extent, where they can control the transmission of this content, and this has to be stopped because victims do not need to be re-victimized. They've already gone through that process. Again, the only difference, the reason why people are talking about online the way they are talking and not offline spaces, is because there's re-victimization. It's not just today, like Mustafa ji just said, it's year on year. Now, the girl was a child, she's going to turn into an adolescent, then an adult, uh, and this is going to follow. This is going to follow you everywhere. So you need systems in place to be able to do that. Now, despite the fact under POXO we have mandatory reporting provisions, companies that are registered in the US do not report to Indian law enforcement. They
Absolutely.
report in the US, and by the time this information comes in the flow, it's not very symmetric. It is there, it's good, I don't contest that, but it is so asymmetric that a lot of time has passed. We can't identify the victim, neither can we catch the perpetrator or do something about it. So the law is good, I think, in terms of substantial laws. If you look at, we have section 67B in the Information Technology Act, which lists down what all is a crime. And let me tell you, one of the best legislations across the world, we have
Absolutely.
identified even grooming as an offense. Even if somebody attempts to groom, it's an offense. But at the same time, we lack in procedural laws with respect to investigation. And I can say that, having worked with law enforcement, that there's a lot of gap for improvement in those areas.
Absolutely, I so agree with you, and that's the huge challenge all of us have been facing at our different levels. And the idea is to ensure that the child and the family is at peace and the least amount of damage is caused, and that is something that is not happening. Coming to you, Saloni, if you can share some cases that you all have been dealing with, you have been doing extensive work in the field of prevention and also providing support and to distress children and adult space, specifically with online child sexual abuse. If you can share some cases that would help us understand the gravity of the situation, and also that the age of children undergoing these situations is now at grade 4 and 5. It's no longer grade 9 and 10. So are we really talking to children, like Nitish very rightly mentioned? How are we going to deal with this? So I'm going to talk about safety measures, which is a question that has come up from the audience a bit later once we understand a little more about the topic. Over to you, Saloni.
Thanks. So yes, the age is progressively going down, and there's no doubt about it. And like I said, like everybody's been talking about, what is happening is a lot of online grooming, and it's a lot done in where you're manipulating the child into not even thinking like it's a very big thing, that it's just I just want to see you have a bath, and just send a photo. I'm not touching you, I'm not doing anything to you. And a child at that age also is not looking at it in terms of, ha theek hai, mujhe छुआ नहीं ना, my personal safety program said nobody should touch me, so nobody has touched me. And that's how the psyche of a 7-8 year old works, while he will happily go on a video call with that person, and then the video is taken, the video is recorded, the child doesn't even know that the video is recorded so often, and then the whole story follows from there. Now this is definitely a problem which we have in this younger age group. In the older age group, in the adolescent age group, the bigger problem is, like, Nitish was mentioning, that they are into relationships, and when they're into relationships, they actually like taking videos of them being intimate with each other. And at that point, it's all good love and affection, because you're feeling very warm and affectionate towards each other. But the moment it goes down south, it's a totally different game,
Absolutely.
and then it
Absolutely.
is like, you have cases where they will be blackmailing, or whether you'll have cases where they will actually upload parts of it on the social network. And then again, yes, sometimes when the perpetrator is known, it becomes easier to pull it down, because you can get the act together, and you involve the police and adults and this and that. But in these familiar known setups, these are some of the cases which do tend to come up a lot, where you have to then explain why it is important to be mindful about even basic things like this. You may trust the person implicitly today, but you have no idea what tomorrow has in store. So do not
Absolutely.
implicitly trust to a point where you are going to be in a compromising position, where you're going to have a compromising photograph or a compromising video. And
Absolutely.
so this is definitely some of the things which we see even at Arpan, and that's the fundamental where we go forward with it. So
I so agree with you. In schools, then when we have sessions, children have come up and told us, so what? I mean, I know what I'm doing and I think it is right because I'm in love.
yeah,
And how do you then convince the child who is barely 10-year-old and is in a relationship online what this is going to lead to and how this is going to be affecting you for the rest of your life? And with parents being in a different space altogether, because they're absolutely unaware of technology, unaware of what their children are doing in cyberspace, and very happily believing that their children, it's always the bachu wale ka bachcha that will do the crime.
Not
So
only that, Sonali, parents not only are oblivious, but even the parents who are relatively more tech savvy and probably know and have parental controls on also and all, don't see that they don't talk to the child. Now
absolutely.
the whole problem starts because the parent doesn't talk to the child. The parent has said, "Ye nahi karna hai. All
Bas,
XYZ PQR is bad. You will not do it." Now, you've never given a rationale to the child why that is unhealthy for the child. The
absolutely.
child is going to be curious. How will you have a, an adolescent who is not
Not
curious?
able to.
Uh,
So why you can't hear us?
am I audible?
Yeah, you are. I think Mustafa, are you audible?
Yeah, I can hear. I can hear now.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry,
Yeah.
something went wrong.
I agree, Saloni. I totally agree with you because parents play a very, very critical role here. And I think that's where work needs to begin very, very early.
Exactly.
Absolutely. So over to you, Mustafa. I want you to talk about what is the procedure involved in the reporting of the cases and in the removal of content, or what is the law enforcement supposed to do while a case is reported?
Okay. Again, I want to flag one of the biggest issue in Indian policing system. In all the conference, I speak this, and I even speak to the minister last time, and I even speak to the director of CBI last time, and we just cracked one area of that problem in Kerala. So what happened is the way it works, the international child exploitation, combating child exploitation ecosystem works. Let's say somebody found a material in Uganda, and they reported that. It goes to the one of the international reporting hierarchy, probably IWF or INHOP or NICMEC or Cyber Tipline. One of these agency will receive it, and they will put this into a victim identification process. Victim identification process normally happen through Interpol, or they have their own victim identification. But if it is not their child, this child probably belongs to one of the Bihari or Kerala state, for example. So this have to send to India, because India represents the global, police organization in Interpol. So Interpol Child Protection Center will send that into Indian NCB, which is the Interpol, sent to Indian NCB, which is the CBI. So CBI then sent to that particular report to the Kerala police, and Kerala police liaison officer look into, then sent to the police organization. It goes into a very long process. By the time the material victimized and material spread around the world, and it is very difficult. But what happened in Kerala police, they have actually, we played a major role to build an ecosystem on that, and Kerala police has now connected directly with the Interpol. Now the Interpol directly is sending to Kerala police. Up to some extent, a big barrier has stopped, and now reporting from the top to down is happening very good, very nicely. Now I still don't know the cybercrime.gov.in, what's running behind it, because this cannot be locally managed, nationally managed, not even regionally managed. It have to manage, all the report have to manage internationally. We have cybercrime.gov.in, we can report it, but I don't know what happened after that, after the reporting. But one thing I can make sure, the Aramb India, which is coalition of, or the collaboration of IWF plus the InHope, and also NICMEC and Cyber Tipline, they have the international collaboration. And if you have any of this child abuse materials, you found it, feel free to go and report it in one of these channels. Maybe I can send you a list of this website on the chat room. So this is the reporting hierarchy. We should adopt it, and we need to lobby the government, we need to push the government to build that global ecosystem. That's what my recommendation on that.
I would really like to request you to share those links here in the chat, especially reporting mechanisms, because that people understand where to go to and what to report. Coming to you, Nitish, if you can help us understand what is it that parents can do in terms of safety measures to report. How do you report? So there was a question here about pornography, and today we stop asking children and telling parents or asking parents whether the child has viewed any pornographic content. We are sure they have. Our question to them therefore is, at what age and what have you done about it? Because these are very critical questions which are never asked and answered by anybody. So what do you think should be done as a preventive measure or as a safety measure to keep parents on guard and be slightly more proactive?
I'll first answer Mustafa ji's bit about what cybercrime.gov.in is also doing, and most of the other helplines also. So, these are reporting places where you can tell these people, okay, you saw something, but beware that you cannot upload any kind of content here. You
Absolutely.
cannot you cannot expect that you've reported to a cybercrime.gov.in, some action is going to be taken. Essentially, what happens is from cybercrime.gov.in, the complaint, you'll have to specify which police station yours is, and the complaint is going to come down to your police station. So it is almost as good as going to your nearest thana and registering there. From personal experience, let me tell you, I've reported 105 cases on WhatsApp, uh, none out of which I have had any communication about as of date. And this was about 5 months ago. So reporting mechanisms, let me tell you, I mean that's a different ball game altogether, which I don't want to go into. But the report that I've shared on the chat has a lot of detail about reporting and everything else also. But specifically for parents, and this is where I've been researching and I've been working the last couple of years, specifically with parents, with children also. Um, to me, it's a very simple formula. Uh, if you are going to control the content that your children are going to consume, you can only do it up to a certain age. To me, today, that's not more than after 12 years old. Somebody is 11, 12 years old, you cannot control content. Take that as a given. 13 is the
Absolutely.
new 23. Before that, control as much as you can, if you want to. If you want to have a conversation with your child about sex, about pornography at the age of 6, fine, go ahead, do it. It depends, varies from household to household
Okay.
when you have that conversation. But if you're going to give your child unfettered access, when I say unfettered access, it is as simple as mobile data. If you give
Yes.
them mobile data on a phone, they're going to do whatever they want, because whatever control that you have is essentially not going to work. Parents can try things like Google Family Link to keep monitoring what children are doing, but that's not foolproof. If you want something foolproof, do not give them mobile data, give them Wi-Fi access, and have a child safe Wi-Fi router installed. There
Absolutely.
are many products out there in the market. Please, if you can, do invest in something like that. And when that age has come, when it is 11, 12, 13, whatever age that you decide, when they're going to go onto social media, start talking to people. And at this point, I will draw from Saloniji's comment about good touch, bad touch. We also translate this into good online touch and bad online touch. That also needs to be talked about. What you can see, because I'm sure parents have also seen this, randomly trying to find a song, trying to find something, and you will see pornographic content, or you'll see something absolutely obscene, on various places, maybe even YouTube, or you'll see something that you don't
Yeah.
like. And odds are your children are also going to see those things. So it's important that before you let them out into that space, you have this conversation with them. And again, the last caveat, parents thinking my child, our children know everything.
संत लोग है.
अगर अगर आपके बच्चों को सब कुछ पता है दुनिया में, तो आप हट जाओ, छोड़ दो उनको, उनको करने दो जो करना है। 12 साल के बच्चे को अगर बाइक चलानी आ गई है, जस्ट गिव हिम द ब्लडी बाइक एंड लेट हिम गो देन,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
But we don't do that because we care for safety. So what we do
Correct.
is, when you're going to let them out, let them uh, experiment. I'm saying experiment and all that because to children it's that,
Yeah.
right? They are in, it's their teenage and they're going to do all sorts of things, but give them the necessary tools that if something goes wrong, who's the one that you're going to tell? If it's not me, that's also fine, but
Very
is it
fast.
is it a responsible person? Is it your senior? Is it your brother, sister? Is it your teacher? Can be anyone, but those norms have to be set, and if
Absolutely.
they are set, you're good for at least a good considerable amount of time. So yeah,
Bang
don't.
on, and Nitish, absolutely bang on, because I so agree on the safe and unsafe touch. And we're also talking about how, therefore, identifying that adult, that trusted adult that you can report to, it is definitely not the parent. So parents, please burst that bubble that your children are going to come to you and talk to you, but help them identify an adult that they can share this concern with, so that they're reaching out to help, reaching out for some kind of support that they're wanting. With the last round of questions, Saloni, I'm going to come to you and ask you, what are the quick red flags that parents should not miss related to child sexual abuse, online or offline, and something that they need to pick up from and report and seek help?
Okay, that's very important because I think, one of the biggest red flags which usually comes up in my mind is a lot of social withdrawal which the child starts showing. Now, whether it's online or offline, you will notice that, the child starts going more inwards.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's always something which one should be a little mindful about. Uh, now if or online, one has to also keep in mind that, what is the child's reaction? Is the child spending too much time on the devices? Does the child suddenly shut the device when you walk into the room? I mean, these are very small things, but they happen very instinctively for the child, because uh, the child knows what's happening is something which the child is feeling unsafe about, is something the child is not feeling nice about, or even for that matter, even if it is something which the child is doing willingly at a particular point of time, they still know that it is not appropriate. Any time when uh, something sexual is happening with a child, as long as they're a child knows it's not appropriate, whether it,
Right.
irrespective of what the feeling with it could be. It could be fear, it could be curiosity, it could be anything, but the fact that it's not appropriate is a very strong feeling with the child. So, the moment the child starts shutting down, the not around the devices when you're there, but on the device otherwise, it's time, maybe not sleeping well, the child is up all night, there's a disturbance in the appetite pattern, the child is, hardly interacting with you or talking in a very inappropriate manner. You suddenly find an 8-year-old start using a sexually abusive language, that,
Absolutely.
the dimag thanakna chahiye as a parent कि इसने सीखा कहाँ से, you don't expect that from an 8-year-old or a 6-year-old. Some of these are like the basic things to catch on. Any change in pattern from the normal behavior, even if you suddenly find that the child has suddenly become very studious, din raat padhai kar raha hai, that should also be a flag. That should not be something where
Absolutely.
the parent says, mera bachcha sudhar gaya. No, tumhara bachcha nahi sudhra hai, there's something amiss over here, there is a red flag over there. And these are the good times to start the conversation with the child. And, you know it's very important to understand that you have to be a little self aware here. If you're a critical parent where you've always been telling the child this is right and this is wrong, the child is not going to open up to you, because the child is very scared. The child is scared of you saying, of course this is wrong, when you knew it was wrong, why didn't you tell me before? Your child is not going to do it. But if you're picking up the flags, like you just mentioned, Sonali, it's important for the parents to then take the child to some place safe. It can be an aunt, it can be a friend, it can be somebody whom they find that the child relates to, who can have a very casual conversation with the child. And if they don't have anybody in the network, it is better to invest in professional help. It's okay for the
Absolutely.
professional to turn around and say, don't worry, everything is fine with your child, than you having missed out on something because the child hasn't been able to connect with you. and i
Absolutely.
and this is very commonly seen with us parents. Most of us, our children don't connect with us because we have a notion in our mind about how our children are supposed to be. This is how they're supposed to be, and the child knows that the parent wants us to be like this, and children are children, they can't be like that. So the moment
Absolutely.
they're not like that, they're shut up with.
No,
So
parenting is such a
I
huge
think
challenge
that
in the
those are
digital
things.
world today, and I agree that. So I think there is nothing called perfect
Totally.
parenting. We are all learning. We are all
Absolutely,
adapting to
absolutely.
technology, not as much as our kids are because they are our gurus in cyberspace. I think
Totally.
it is absolutely cool to reach out to people for help because it is for our children. It is to protect our children, and we strongly, all of us have been talking about how communication is the only best effective parental control, which needs to start in from age 3, 4, whatever, whenever you
One,
introduce
one, one,
devices. Yeah,
one.
absolutely. So whenever you start conversations with children, communication is the most effective parental tool, and prevention is very, very critical. We have very little time because I really want some questions to come in from the audience. One quick takeaway, one sentence takeaway from the three of you. Let me start with Mustafa. You're
You're
mute. You're
on mute.
mute.
Sorry, sorry. So basically, to have my closing note is, I mean, whether it is parent, whether it is teachers, whether it is the government, whether it is police, we always thinking that yeah, we are safe, we are okay. I mean, I nothing wrong here. It maybe happened to that country or this country or I just tell you one incident that happened to me. Okay, as part of my child victim identification process, I used to support some of the international law enforcement agencies to identify where this child belongs to. They don't show the the genital part of the child, but they cover it up and they play the video so that I understand its language, slang. So if it's an Indian or if it's a Bihar, any other country, I mean, I can just simply say, I happened to see a video being recorded by a father of a child which was just at 5 kilometers away from my home. And that was reported by a Canadian police organization, TPS, Toronto Police Service. And I was identified that child 5 kilometers away from my home. And that's and it is arrested, the Kerala police has arrested that. Trust me, this is something which is, I cannot, I cannot say anything on that. So we always think that, oh, no, it is not happening. Oh, child abuse materials, blah, blah, this all there happen in Canada, America, or no. It could happen right in your building, right in your home itself. So we have to open our mind. We have to really continuously pushing our government, continuously pushing our society to tackle this issue. Because one more thing, I'm just closing note. Everybody talk about these things happen in the dark net, not on the surface web. You know what is the biggest dark net we are using today in your mobile, my mobile, is WhatsApp. Because when a content pushed through WhatsApp, it is almost impossible for any technology to break it because they are using end-to-end encryption. So WhatsApp is the biggest darknet, today we are using today. All right. Thank you very much for that.
Over to you, Nitish, and I'm sure you can vouch for the WhatsApp note that he said. Over to you. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I'm not going to go into WhatsApp. I think I've shared the link to our
Report.
report and the findings there. I'll keep it very crisp. I just want to say that I'm assuming that a lot of people on this attending this webinar are parents. So just to sum it up very succinctly, please respect children and be sex positive. That's all that is going to take in the long run to bring about some change. Respect them and be sex positive, and things are going to be good.
Fabulous. Over to you, Saloni.
I think the only thing which I want to add on to that is that, you know, uh, it's very important for us to understand that sexual abuse is sexual abuse, whether it is online or offline. And the impact of that sexual abuse is the same on the child, whether it has happened online or offline. And there is a little myth I feel in people till now, saying that, oh, but then online it will, once it's taken off, it won't impact. And, that kind of a thing is, I've seen that kind of an attitude. And I want to just call out over there, saying that no, it's not about it being taken off. It's not about it being, uh, they're not there. The impact is very traumatic on the child, and one needs to, like Nitish said, just keep an open mind, keep that communication, and keep our children safe, with in person and digitally. I think that's very important.
Absolutely. I think all three of us, of you, have been so crisp, and all of the insights that you've shared. I think five very critical takeaways of this workshop is: A, understand technology and befriend it, because otherwise you will never understand what a child does. Two, communicate with your children, understand what they probably could be getting into, equip yourself and your children in cyberspace with safety measures, talk to them about the threats that they can pose. Most importantly, be willing to seek help and to be able to be available non judgmentally, accepting your children with whatever problems they go through or whatever they get themselves into. We've been there, done that ourselves while we were children, and we've been accepted by our parents. So I think we are on the new generation parents. Let us learn to, I agree with Nitish on this, respecting children and cushion the damage that is created. That we can do that by creating awareness, by being sensitive, by being aware ourselves, and prevent any further damage. So education, communication is very critical. I thank all three of you for sharing your valuable insights. There are some hand raised in the panel. Maybe you can put up your questions here in the chat, or if you can ask us. So I think you will not be able to ask us directly, but you can definitely put your question in the chat box and address it to whomever you want it to be answered by, and we'll be happy to do that. There are some great comments in the chat box, if people can go through those also. Um, Kirti Sudha ma'am, thank you for your words, and I agree how critical your role has been in the work that you've been doing. Also the amount of information and awareness that needs to be built on by all of us collectively. There are a lot of ways in which you can protect each of our websites. Cyber Peace Foundation, Disc Foundation, Responsible Netism has a lot of content available on online safety. Arpan has a lot of manuals on online safety and offline safety. Have a look at those. All the websites will also be posted here, and share them with as many people as you want to. Any questions for anybody? Till the questions come up, I also want to talk about building hope here, because I know it is a very gloomy, very scary, uh, not very hopeful kind of a situation, but we're still hoping that all of us collectively will be able to make a difference. And which is why we're all working in this space to protect children. So however much time the government takes, we're willing to wait for practices and best practices to come in. Meanwhile, we're there to fill in whatever gaps need to be filled in. And I take this as a collective from Nitish and Mustafa and Saloni, that we're all available for you in case of any crisis that you face. And we're there, and we are very hopeful that things will change. So build on that hope, stay strong, and protect your children. How do you educate children, those who are now online, to wanting to explore websites? Nitish, if you can add in your bit there.
Yeah, so I think to me, I don't know. The pandemic has done a lot of things, but and exposed a lot of people to many things. But I don't think it has kind of pushed children or anyone into exploring new websites per se, as opposed to what they were doing. And I mean, it's not nothing to do with online sessions, I think, and that's why I want to answer it generally, how and what you would talk about to children. My answer again, I'll go back to what I was saying. It depends on the age group that your child is in. If they are going to school and they are amongst their peers, because I know for a fact, and I don't know, it's a very personal experience to me. I think that some parts of the country, or say cities versus tier 2 towns, tier 3 towns, the same class 5 child is going to be different, and exposed to different kind of things in their own peer groups in these 3 different places. So you need to be aware of that context. And if in your setting your child is going to be exposed to things that you don't want to be them to be exposed to, I'm telling this to you again from experience working with parents. The first thing when you go to talk to them about online safety or whatever under the sun that talks about technology, हम अपने बच्चे को गलत चीजें देखने से कैसे रोकें?
रोक
How can
सकते
we
हैं.
stop them from viewing things that we don't want them to? So there are things that you don't want them to view. Uh, Now, but there is good scientific research to say why at a certain age it is not healthy for them to consume that content, and that is the conversation that you want to be having. If that is their age, to not be consuming that kind of content, and according to you, you need to talk in those many words. Back your reasoning, back your statement with logic and reasoning, because children demand.
Absolutely, absolutely.
This is not the age where you can pick up a stick and say no, do this. That's not going to happen.
Absolutely. And if you can't justify to your children, they will never ever be convinced. I totally agree with you. There was another question that how does one deal with content creation? So I think age appropriateness is something I want to talk about in about a minute. Games have age appropriation. So if you know, PUBG is for 16 and plus, and many other games have age verification. So does social media, which is meant for 13 and plus. Understand these age verifications, be updated yourself, and justify to children. You don't allow your child to drive at 12 and 13. Similarly, those age restrictions have to be followed, and there is enough content available online also. There are some resources, a list of resources that have been put up on the chat. Maybe you could have a look at those as well. Any critical pinning question that needs to be answered here? I think Mustafa has to leave, and if the questions continue, we can allow Mustafa to leave. Is it okay for him to go ahead?
Yeah, I mean, just there was a question in the open question that cyber volunteer and initiative in MHA. Can you please give? That's a question. My best understanding from the MHA initiative of cyber volunteer, it is not for particularly on child online protection. It is more on the cyber crime as a, the
Yes.
cyber crime is a big thing now. Everything is cyber. So we have banking fraud. We haven't even touched that. There's a lot happening when it comes to cyber crime. So MHA had a lot of volunteers for barriers of cyber crime, combating cyber crime. So this is what the MHA have formed the initiative. But I don't think any initiative such as crime against children can build a volunteer, because and no individual is supposed to go and watch a child abuse materials. I mean, in a way, child explicit materials, sexually explicit materials. So that's another problem, because recently there was one issue. We cannot come to the press and talk about child abuse materials, because when it is too many people know about, oh, child abuse materials means child pornography. Okay, let me find out something. That goes the other way around. There are people who, not everybody is good, their mind is bad, so that they go and search and find out these type materials, and they become the kind of a culprit on abusing the children. So probably somebody else can brief that, and I'm really sorry I have to get into another meeting at 8 o'clock. I need to leave, and thank you very much for giving this opportunity. Sonali, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mustafa, for your valuable thoughts and your
Nitish and
contributions.
Saloni, thank you very much.
If there are some questions in the Q&A section, um, on your website, one of the suggestions given is to befriend children below 13, not to befriend children below 13 years online. Why so? Is there a legal implication to this? Would you want to answer that, Nitish? why not to befriend children under 13 on social media?
So there is no law in the country that says that you shouldn't befriend children, anyone under 13. But the general norm on social media platforms mostly is that you have to be 13 or above in order to be actually using that platform. So ideally, if there is someone who is under that age, them being on the platform for them is not allowed. You talking to them, also because again the laws are also very much clear on the aspects of what things can constitute online sexual harassment against children, and it's pretty broad,
Yeah.
the list of things. So I mean, I think that's to the only effect that is the law that exists in terms of how and what you can communicate. So for example, you can't even make any sexually colored remarks as you would be doing, maybe with your friends in your circles, which of course also you should not be doing, which also can be illegal in many cases. But with children, those lines are absolutely clear. So yeah, in the first place, because they're not supposed to be there on the platform, and you're also, by the way, uh, required to report if you find that somebody is underage. You can go ahead, report that profile, say that you think that this person is underage, by way of the terms and conditions that you agree to, but you never read while signing up for any platform. It says so that if you come across a profile, you should actually go ahead and report it, say that it is of a child who's under 13 years of age.
But most of the times it won't let you sign up unless you're faking it. Unless you're faking the age, etc., it doesn't let you sign up into a social media platform also.
Yeah, exactly. So you can't actually make a profile that says that you're 12, but
Yeah.
No.
you know that this child. So for example, like I know for a fact that I played PUBG for a long time to understand what's happening, and I came across so many 12-year-olds.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
They
that's true.
yeah, I mean, they're there. You know it. If your parents here, you know it. Your children, 10-year-olds, are playing those games that are meant for 16-year-olds. So if you know that, just might as well report it, and just push them off that platform, because they're not supposed to be there. I mean, there's a reason, and I'm sure professional like Saloni ji, Sonali ji, everyone, they worked in this space to understand the psychology of children and the reasons behind why at a certain age they shouldn't be there. I'm not going to comment on that because that's not my area of expertise, but I'm sure that the reason it is there, it means something. So let's just do our bit in that.
Sure.
Sure. So I think we come to the close of this session. Thank you so much, Nitish, for spending your time with us, and Saloni, both of you. I think a lot of insights have come up. I'm sure people are slightly more empowered and hopeful about how they can report and understand the gravity of the situation today. Let us all come together and not just wait for the Child Safety Week to happen, but continuously be on guard to understand how we can protect our children from any kind of abuse, whether it be online or offline, and also believe that there are ways to combat the situation, there are ways to reach out to help, there are ways to be able to provide help and support to people who are in distress. So we're all hopeful that change will come in, and we bank on your support to be able to spread this message across to as many people as you think you are connected with, so that they're also aware of how and what they could do to prevent children from abuse. Thank you for listening, and thank you for being a part of this discussion. Take care, everybody. Stay safe, be online, and look after yourselves.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you everyone.